Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I wanted to give you a quick video on my thoughts on the announcements Games Workshop made today on their live stream. I live streamed my reaction on my Twitch channel. It was a great time and I really liked what Games Workshop had to show. So if you wanted to check that out, then head over there to the Twitch channel to watch the VOD. It should be up for a couple weeks. But anyways, with that said, let's actually talk about what they announced today. So today, Games Workshop announced we are going into 9th edition. So in this video, I'm going to briefly go over all of my thoughts on that, what we know because of the details that they've given us, and what my thoughts are on those details. So it's confirmed that 9th edition isn't starting over like how things were from 7th to 8th edition. 9th is just going to expand upon the 8th edition rule set and tweak a few things to hopefully better balance all the units in the game. I talked about this in a previous video called Let's Talk About 8th edition, but basically 8th edition is a fairly good and balanced rule set. It just needs a few minor adjustments to become perfect, and that's what Games Workshop is attempting to do with this 9th edition release. For example, the updated rules for terrain. This has been an issue for a while in 8th edition since terrain is pretty much just used for blocking line of sight or giving +1 save to your units for standing on it. In some cases, terrain does subtract 2 from a charge if you're using stuff like forest terrain or creators, but really that's about it. Terrain rules have kind of been lacking in all of 8th edition, and I'm glad that Games Workshop is expanding on terrain rules, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. Tanks can now shoot out of combat. This will change the game quite a bit in the way that we build army lists. Previously, before this change, you could get away with an army that was really only meant to kill infantry and just tie up the tanks in combat. That will no longer be the case. Every army will now be forced to add in some anti-tank capabilities in order to actually deal with those tanks. I assume surrounding a tank will still be a viable tactic though, because from the sounds of it, that tank won't be able to shoot the units it's in combat with, and other units still can't shoot into combat either. But that tank can shoot out of that combat at other units now, so it's not completely useless when it's tied up. So in theory, you can still keep your unit safe by surrounding a tank or multiple tanks at once. But again, we're kind of just going to have to wait and see what their rules are that they come out with. And again, although this is a big change, I don't think it's going to hurt melee armies as much as some people might think that it will. They also said more command points for armies. I don't think they specifically mentioned how this is going to work, but I guess the idea is so that armies like Custodes won't have to ally with Imperial Guard in order to get enough command points to function properly. So overall, I think this could be a good change. However, depending on how it's done, it might make some armies that don't really need soup to compete, like Space Marines, even stronger. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how they implement this before we can make a final judgment. Another thing they mentioned is that soup armies are getting nerfed. If I heard this correctly, it's something about having to pay command points to bring allies. I could be wrong though, I might have heard it wrong. Personally, I think this might be the only thing from this update that I don't agree with, but then again, I don't have the full picture. Some armies like Chaos Space Marines, for example, kind of need soup in order to compete with other armies like Space Marines, so this change might nerf those armies. But again, with that said, I don't have the full picture, and so we're going to have to wait and see what other rules are added, because I assume there's going to be other new rules that they didn't mention in this announcement. So because of the new addition, they're also tweaking unit points across the board, since some units will be stronger with the new rules, and some will be weaker. They didn't go in depth on this, so I don't have a lot of details on it. Personally, I'm hoping that they do an idea that I heard from someone a long time ago, which is that everything in the game should be double the points that it is now, and we should play 4K games. The reason being, with points being as low as they are, it's hard to balance some units effectively. For example, a guardsman versus a cultist. Both these units should not be the same points as each other. But moving a cultist down to 3 points would probably make them undercosted. But if every unit in the game went up by twice the points, a guardsman could be 8 points and a cultist could be 7. That would be a much easier way to balance these small differences in units. I'm hoping Games Workshop does something like this, but again, just gonna have to wait and see whatever they did come up with. They also said that blast weapons are going to be getting better at dealing with hordes, like they were previously in previous editions because pie plates were a thing. So these weapons, like battle cannons as an example, are going to get max shots when shooting at hordes. They didn't specify how this triggers though. I assume it's going to be something along the lines of, when you shoot this weapon at a unit with 15 or more models, it gets maximum number of shots. I think this is a good thing, but I also wish there was a different way of going about it, because armies that bring squads of that size, in this example 15, will now only bring 14 models instead, so that it minimizes the effectiveness of those types of weapons. So it will be interesting to see how Games Workshop implements this, because if they do it in a quote-unquote wrong way, then people will be able to game the system and try to get around it. Flyers can now fly off the table and return in a future turn. I really like this change because even as a competitive player who likes abusing rules, it was kind of dumb being able to kill a flyer because you had units in the spot that it needed to land. So now the answer to this is that flyers can fly off the table and return later in the game. How exactly this is going to be implemented though, again, they didn't really mention. And finally, I think we are getting what we asked for, and that is a Games Workshop app. They stated that it will have an army building function, so I guess rest in peace Battlescribe. What they didn't mention though is if it will have rules for armies. And if it does end up including rules for armies, we don't know if they're going to be able to update those rules digitally. This is something I've been asking for a very long time, because it kind of sucks when you buy a codex and like 2 weeks later they come out with an FAQ. Like sure, don't get me wrong, the FAQ is great. We need them to keep the game balanced. But at the same time, I would really prefer them to update the rules in the digital codexes rather than having a separate website that you need to go to for the FAQs to make sure that you're playing the rules in the codex correctly. I understand you can't update a physical copy of a codex, but the digital codexes, why not just update those? It would be so convenient. So speaking of which, one cool thing that I did read in their FAQ about this new edition is that in the future, when you buy a rulebook for 9th edition, you will get a free copy of the digital version as well. So that is a step in the right direction. Now I just really hope that they update the digital versions so that we don't really need FAQs and erratas. We can just look at our digital version of the codex and everything will be changed in there. That would be amazing. And the last thing to mention, and this isn't really a rules thing but more of a narrative thing, is that it seems like Necrons are going to be the new big baddies of 9th edition. They somewhat previewed the new Silent King model, and from what I did see, it looks really good. They also previewed some new Primaris models like a Chainsword Intercessor, so now melee Space Marine armies have a melee option for Intercessors. They didn't mention if those Intercessors are troops though, so they could be an elite choice and invalidate Reavers even more. So overall, I'm super excited about this and can't wait to get my hands on the new 9th edition rules. When 9th edition does arrive, I will be playing many games over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/almostprogaming_TV, and showing off the new rules while learning them myself. So if you want to see some 9th edition games as soon as the rules are out, make sure to head over to my Twitch channel and give it a follow. Anyways, that's it for this little update. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this update. I'll be at my computer all day and I'll be reading all of your comments, and I'm genuinely interested in what you have to say. I personally can't wait for 9th edition, and I'm looking forward to what it brings to the game. And I hope we can get an even more balanced version of 40k for competitive play. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.